Hi, everybody. Thank you for waiting. My name is Dr. Shayna Weiss. I am the Associate Director of the Schusterman Center for Israel Studies. I want to thank you all for coming today, for being part of this. There's a lot to say about what's happened in Israel in the past week or so. But what I wanted to say when we at Schusterman had a meeting about what we were going to do and thinking about our programming, it was really important for us that we continue to support the arts in this really complicated and difficult time. And then as soon as we heard from Aleeza that she was up to it and had somehow found a flight to London, we were really committed to doing this and really just committed to the role of the arts in scholarship and dialogue and discussion. So we're just really, really glad she's here today with us. I want to thank the staff that worked tirelessly to make this happen at the Schusterman Center, especially Mushkie, who is busy even right now making sure this goes smoothly. And of course, Risa, Alex, who is not able to be here today because he has a sick 2-year-old, but sends his regards, Professor K. And of course, Aleeza, who made today happen. Just a short bio, Aleeza Chanowitz is a writer, director, actor, and creator of the hit TV show Chanshi. Brooklyn born and raised, she moved to Israel in August 2011 when she was 21. She attended the Jerusalem Sam Spiegel Film School. She's won several awards for her first short film, Shabbos Kallah. She also has another short film, Mushkie. So I want to say just a couple of things about Chanshi and why I felt that I had to bring this to Brandeis, and then we'll have a discussion between Aleeza and myself, and then we'll have time for questions from students. I also just wanted to add, I want to thank Professor Sarah Haskell, who was really excited about this and worked to include her class as well as my class today. So Chanshi, as you all know, is the story of a young woman from a Jewish Orthodox family in Brooklyn. She, with the sort of excuse of her friend's wedding, she comes to Israel to escape her sort of previous life. And through her trapezings around, as we could call it, we start to learn about her own past and her own trauma and her own story. So any of you who know me know that I watch a lot of Israeli TV. It's what I do. And I actually, one of the things I've done recently is set out to watch every single Israeli television show that deals with Orthodox Jews. And I'm not counting ones that have like one Orthodox character. I'm talking about the ones that are all about Orthodox Jews. I actually found over 20 of them. I'm in the final stages of an article revision about it. But what these things didn't have were independent female characters. The characters in them, some of them were better than others, but they were almost always wife of this person, husband, or mom of this person. Right? They weren't independent, well-rounded characters that could stand on their own. I also, when I saw this, saw an experience, of course, that hadn't been really portrayed beyond being the butt of the joke. And that's the experience of American Jews in Israel, right? Easy to make fun of. I've been there. I've been the butt of it. I've made fun of it. But to really explore and think about that was really powerful to me. And then the third thing is the question of sexual consent and the gray zone of experiences that a lot of students, adults, et cetera, have done or have had experience with. And thinking about Me Too and new discussions about these, I thought this was a really fresh and important voice that we could put into conversation with shows like I May Destroy You or Girls that have had really interesting takes on these. So that's just sort of some of the things I was thinking about. But Aleeza, hi.
Hello.
I thought we would just start with, tell us about how the show got made, right? How did this happen?
Okay. In short, when I never thought that I would end up living in Israel. I never wanted to. And then I ended up finding myself in a situation where someone was like, why don't you go study for a year? There's a certain program in Bar-Ilan University, and you won't feel like you're missing out on life. And sorry, I'm going a little bit way back, but basically I had nothing to say to him in terms of like, where am I rushing to? So I spent a year in Israel, and I fell in love with just the people and the mentality and being far away from everybody who knew me beforehand. And that's when I decided that I wanted to move to Israel. And then when I actually moved to Israel, I got there and I was like, well, now what? So I went to film school. And then in film school, in Sam Spiegel, I had studied film in Brooklyn College my first semester, but I just felt like everybody around me like knew directors and cinematographers and they knew all these films, and I was just like, I thought this would just be fun. Then I came to Sam Spiegel, and it was very much about like talk about, Renan would say, Ma petza shelach, what's your wound? Like what is that story that only you can tell? So it was very much like a personal thing. And I found it very therapeutic and fun, and just like, you know, I made all these new friends. And because the two short films, I also acted in them, just because I wanted to. I was like, this could be fun. I got the opportunity to meet this woman, Miri Tubi, who's in charge of content at Hot. There's like 3 networks in Israel that I know of. And so I had a meeting with her, and basically she was like, I liked your short films. Would you want to do a TV series? And this was about 6 years ago. And TV made a big jump in the past 6 years in terms of, like, it used to be like film was what everybody wanted to do, but then eventually like television became just as like, help me with my words, like on the same level.
Yeah,
like
prestigious.
Yeah. So, but this was before that. Basically, I had finished film school, and I was like, I want to make a film. I'm a filmmaker. And she was like, do you want to do a series? And I was like, oh my God, I need a job. So I was like, yes, I have so many ideas. And I just lied my way through it. And I'm very happy I did, but that's really what happened. And now I have this 6 years later.
Right, so I want to say that's like not most people's story.
No, I really did have a lot of mazel, and I really was in the right place at the right time, and I decided to go with the opportunity. It was very scary because you do short films, and you're like, do I have enough content in order to fill up more space? Can I take these characters on a longer journey? Are they interesting? Would anybody want to watch it? A lot of questions that like I dealt with, I still deal with, and I hope that like it worked out. And somehow they continued to, the show came out. I will say they didn't even believe in the show when it actually came out, because a lot of the content that the network is focusing on right now is very much reality TV and stuff that has to do with like Mossad and police and like action stuff. So it's kind of like a miracle that my show actually made it onto their TV. So I just need everybody here to like talk about it, be like, oh, what a great show. And then like,
yeah, we're basically all your PR agents. So I wanted to, you know, I was looking at different reviews, and I think my favorite one was The Land of Milk and Horny, which was a tablet review. But, you know, there's like a lot of discussions in scholarship about how Zionism and the sort of love for the land of Israel can take on this erotic dimension. Boaz Neumann writes about it. There's a lot of other people. But with Chanshi, we get this sort of flipped perspective, because the classic perspective we get in scholarship is a man, right, a big, you know, Zionist man, longing for the sort of feminized land. And here, of course, it's the opposite. We get a female perspective. And, you know, with that, she's reconsidering her sort of nice fiance, right? We could maybe say he's even a stereotypical old Jew, for those of you who have learned about the old Jew and the new Jew. And sort of with that, thinking about Zionism and love and the connections between it, I wanted to show a scene from episode 2 for us to think about and talk about. So Mangchi, if you could pull that up. We'll play a scene and then we'll hear your thoughts.
Oh, that's yours. I thought it was your roommate's. Wow. So nice. אז אתה מוזיקאי.
לא, זה סתם בשביל הכיף, אני סטודנט. לומד מתמטיקה באוניברסיטה העברית.
אתה מתמטיקה.
כן.
And you play the flute.
זה מוזר.
You just look like,
מזרחי?
No, מזרחים אני אוהבת.
לא יודעת שיש מזרחים שמנגנים בחליל.
אני לא racist, if that's what you're trying to say.
לא אמרתי שאת רייסיסט. אבל בטוחה שאת לא רייסיסט.
אני מאוד אוהבת מתמטיקה, okay? In high school, I was really good at proofs. I was like the queen of proofs.
וואלה.
Mm-hmm.
יפה. זה לא בדיוק אותו דבר, זה כאילו שפה אחרת לגמרי, אתה תביני מה שאני...
3x minus... למה לא? Oh, you think I don't know math? Well, maybe you're the racist. So tired.
אני גם דתי.
אני יודעת, גם אני דתי.
אני לא מכיר הרבה בחורות דתיות שהולכות ברחוב וצועקות, איפה יש גברים מזרחים?
אז מה?
מה זה, מה יש לך שם?
It's from my engagement ring. I broke off my engagement. I'm not engaged anymore. I just forgot to take it off. But I'm not engaged.
את בסדר? כאילו, הכל בסדר איתך? הכל בסדר? מה את עושה?
למה?
אני שומע נגיעה.
לא, אתה לא.
כן, כן.
אתה לא.
אני כן. סבבה?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm drunk. Sorry.
רגע, את צריכה משהו? את רוצה שנלווה אותך?
Could I sleep on your couch?
Okay, so take us through the scene.
It's not me. It's not me. But it looks like me. What do we want to say?
Just like, take me through the scene. Like, this is one of the first times we really meet him. We really meet David. Like,
Yeah.
What's going on in the scene, the music, everything.
So, I love this scene. Well, the point of the scene, at least from the beginning to the end, is we see she's kind of like a predator in a way. Like, she sees what she wants. She's going for it. I will say that, like, I feel like I always wondered if I had the opportunity to do this show in the U.S. as like an American show, would I be able to get away with a lot of things that I got away with in this show? Like, for example, the fact that she's obsessed with Mizrahi guys. Like, it's something that is just like, I feel like a lot of people are like, yeah, me too, and they totally agree with, but you can't like say things like that out loud anymore. And I feel like people, I don't know, here at least like laughed or you get it, but there was something of like, can we talk about it or not? And here it's at least like, it's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be fun. I'm like playing on this fact that like people have this fetish of the other, I guess. And it's kind of like, that is the ultimate Israeli guy, you know, the dark Middle Eastern guy, not who plays the flute. And so we kind of like wanted to play with the idea of like, that she thinks he's something and he's trying to tell her like, I'm not this, but you also, like I play the flute and I study math, which is something, sorry, I'm like saying a bunch of different things, just pulling up on, because there's, I don't know how many people know, like in Israel, there's also a lot of, with like racist politics in between people that are Ashkenazi or Mizrahi in terms of like who gets certain job opportunities, or certain people feel like they can't get certain opportunities in life based on that.
So you felt this was like an like a sort of anti-typecast,
Yes.
like take a certain idea of what Mizrahi men do or are and play with it.
Yes. And also what I like about this scene is also like there's like some stuff that in a way doesn't necessarily move the plot forward, of her just being like, yeah, 3x minus 1, your racist number, like some certain things that like maybe it doesn't necessarily move the plot forward, but I just thought it was fun, and it really kind of brings you into like who she is in this game that she's playing. Because it's the first time that we're meeting his character, and you want to kind of like set up what is the dynamic that they're going to have. And then what I tried to do at the end is where you kind of see something kind of turns in him when she says to him, like, you're Shomer Negia, like you don't, like he says, I'm Shomer Negia, like you don't touch women. And she goes, like, yeah, but you're, like we all say we're Shomer, like all us religious people, like we say we're Shomer Negia, but when the door is shut, that's a different story, and just don't tell my dad. So kind of like how she's someone who clearly knows that this is the rule of the game, and he's someone who's like, I need you kind of to teach me the rules. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like I want to do that. I'm not there yet.
How did you choose that he would be playing on the recorder like Erev Shel Shoshanim, which is like, for those of you who don't know, this like classic, very pastoral, like Zionist love song about like finding love in the vineyard and flowers at night?
Well, this is what has to do with in terms of filmmaking. You have your idea, and then you have the script, and then you have all these other people telling you it's good, it's bad, and then you actually go in and film it, and everything changes along the way, and then you edit it. And in the editing process, originally I had him playing a different song that for me was just very nostalgic for me, like an Israeli song. But if I'm assuming how many episodes did people watch?
4 or 5, but some people watched all of them.
Okay, lucky you. But anybody who's watched up to 4, there is like a part in episode 4 where a different character's playing on the guitar, and I wanted him to play a certain song, but he was like, I don't have enough time to learn it. So we had to choose a song that was easy for him to play, and we chose this song, which is a great song, but it didn't have the same kind of feeling that I initially wanted in the song I chose. But it doesn't matter what I really wanted in the beginning, because then we were able to tie it in, that like we put it in at the beginning, and then it comes up again here, and then all of a sudden the song like has taken on this new meaning throughout the entire season, and it like represents him and their relationship and their dynamics.
Yeah, so speaking of the 4th episode, which I think might be my favorite, it's almost entirely what we would call a bottle episode, which means that there's a little bit at the beginning, but it basically takes place when Chanshi visits a settlement with David. David is maybe gonna make some investment there, buying a cheap apartment, and there's a lot to say about all of it, but I wanted to show one part in particular that I think really hits on something really American. So if we could pull up that.
Oh my God! מדהים! יפה לך אקדח!
תודה.
וואו!
I'm American after all.
אוקיי, שרי ידיים קדימה, נעולות, ידיים נעולות.
אוקיי.
יופי, יופי, יופי. קצת כיפוף ברגל. עוד קצת כיפוף ברגל, יופי, זה נראה טוב. מרגישה טוב? יופי, רגע אחד, רגע, תראי לי איך זה נראה, יופי. תגידי לי רק שאת מוכנה, בסדר?
אני לא מוכנה, אוקיי.
אוקיי, תכניסי לי האצבע קדימה,
רק שיש לך טלפון. רק שהטלפון שלך מצלצל.
No, בסדר.
היי, אנחנו באמצע פה.
Okay, one second, רגע. Hello?
Hey, it's Hanalei. I just want to make sure you're coming tonight.
Oh, I don't think I'm gonna make it. I'm sorry.
Can you show up to the mitzvah?
Okay, I gotta go. I'm living my best life. Send regards.
מיכאל.
בוא'נה, אהבת?
Yeah,
רוצה שוב?
I think I'm good.
אוקיי, כנסי למצב!
Okay.
So you told me that the scene was ad-libbed, or like sort of you thought of it on the set?
No.
Okay.
We wrote the scene where
wrote
she
the scene.
shoots the gun. Just to give you, to people who haven't watched it, the woman who's standing in the back is his wife, his very young wife, and the guy next to her you see is David's roommate. So they all, like Chanshi was like, yeah, we're going on a trip, let's go, just to like stick to David and whatever it is that he was doing. We didn't add, but a lot of things kind of like happened on the set. And it was a real gun. It was like we were shooting blanks. It was very soon after Alec Baldwin on there. So we were like nervous. I mean, obviously we had a guy who, everyone has a guy who, all right, I can't get into that. But we
Who
were
made
like,
sure things were safe.
yes, to make sure things were safe, but it was like a real gun, and like, so there is some like excitement in terms of like everyone was nervous, but like holding one is like, I'm not used to holding a weapon, is like something very scary about it. So there were some other gunshots or things that we just like added in to just increase the anxiety or the excitement in terms of like holding a gun and what that means, and how you think it's like gonna be this like fun thing, and then it's actually, there's something about it that's actually kind of traumatizing. At least that's how I felt. Yeah, what was the question?
No, just like taking through the scene, and also this sort of, I don't know, the juxtaposition of her firing the gun, which has a sort of, I mean, not sort of, very sexual overtones, right? Especially with what happens next, and Noki going to the mikveh to ostensibly prepare for her own sexual experience with the wedding.
It's also interesting, I'll just say about this episode that like, I thought, I mean, in the process of like writing, I want it to be something that's fun. I want it to be something that's enjoyable. So I want to write characters that I find that are interesting, but also like that it's going to be fun for me to like use, that they're complex. And I chose, I mean, the guy who plays the settler, like I wanted someone who's on the edge, because a lot of people who go to live in the middle of nowhere are somebody who's on the edge. It's not, most part, if like in a place like this. And I got extremely mixed reviews about it. I had some people who were really offended. And I had some people who were like, wow, I remember when I was that like American girl being like, this is gonna be so much fun, and then you end up in this place and you're just like, I really had no idea like what I was getting myself into. And like with Chanshi, it's like she's still kind of like, until probably towards the end of like this scene, she has this idea of what it is, and then like this kind of experience like with the gun kind of like changes things. And then all of a sudden when she hears the gunshots in the background, it's like, it's not what I thought it was. And I think that's something overall in the entire series of like, I had this idea of what it was, it's not what I thought it was. That sums it up.
No, and it's interesting, like thinking of my own experiences, right? Like I definitely like was like, oh, I'll go visit friends in a specific settlement, and you're like, wait, what am I doing here, right? And where are we? What is going on here? And I think also, especially, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit also about Chanshi's sort of like cosplay, like why she starts wearing like the scarf, and like she refuses to talk at a certain point, sort of emulating Geffen and what's going on there, the quiet wife who we see on the screen now.
I think I constantly am asking questions about religion, about my place in religion and Judaism, because I grew up.
Oh, good. This was my next question.
Oh, good. I grew up religious. I mean, my father's Chabad, my mother's modern Orthodox, so like they're divorced clearly because that's not going to work out. And they were divorced when I was like 4. So, and then I have an older brother. Just so you guys know my entire family story. He's Chabad. He stayed on the right path, and I got all confused. And here I am making TV series. And I think I'm always dealing with this question of like, I really love what the religious world and the community has to offer, and I miss so much of it, but I also felt so stifled by it. And sometimes it feels like, this is just like, I had an experience, it plays into like also with Chanshi, I had an experience with a guy that I felt like because I wasn't religious, he thought he could treat me a certain way. And I just, in order to like protect myself, not necessarily have a conversation or to understand what really happened, I was like, if I dress religious, guys won't assume that I'm easy, or guys won't assume that they can give me a hug just because, you know what I mean? Like, so I started to like go back to be religious in a way of like outside, just to kind of protect myself. And I'm always kind of playing because there's something about it that feels kind of stifling to me, that like I really can't breathe in these situations. Like when I keep Shabbat like I'm supposed to, I just feel like I'm going crazy, but like I also really want to be there. And I feel like this kind of question where I don't have an answer, I'm like kind of in between, I'm always like on the wall somewhere, and I feel like that's something that I also put into her character. And then, so when she comes here and she sees the good wife who has the life that maybe the person David wants her to be, if she just puts it on and acts like her, like, is it true? Like, is that really who I am? I don't have any answers.
And you also see it in how Chanshi dresses. I mean, I've told you this before, but I am obsessed with her clothes, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about just like clothing and costuming, sort of whether it's in this scene or sort of in general.
Well, I from the beginning, I was like, they are stylish people. Like, just because someone's religious, they're not going to wear just like something frumpy and modest. Like, that's not what I know. It's like, these are very stylish people, and they wear things that are like fun and colorful. And so it was really interesting because even though I'm working with a lot of Israelis, most of them were secular, and they had to do research. And believe me that also there's people who dress this way, and also American Jews are very different, like religious Americans are very different than Israeli religious, and like the way that they dress is also different and taken into account. And I don't know if you guys know the designer, but Sheva Hay, I just saw, she's like really expensive stuff. And I was like, those are the clothes that I want the girls to wear. Obviously she didn't do all the clothes, too expensive. But
Betcha Hayes, just so those of you who don't know, is actually a Baal Tshuva, a woman who became religious and didn't like modest clothes and now makes extremely gorgeous, extremely expensive modest dresses that are very, very popular. She's one of the people behind the whole like prairie dress trend, just so you have know.
Yeah, and also it was also interesting to talk about just in terms of like, I don't know, this idea. I just remember coming to Israel, very naive, having an idea of that like everybody there is Jewish, so they all like know all about, even if they're not religious, they know what it is and they're deciding not to do it. And then one of my good friends, I went to her house for Shabbat and I went on to light candles, and like she didn't know the blessing on the candles, and I was like, why not? She's like, well, we don't do it in my house, like we're not religious. And I was like, but how do you not know? Like, you come in with this idea, it's like, it's a whole country. They've got all these people that are doing all these kinds of things. It's not just like the place that your father took you on a trip for Pesach.
Yeah. So one of the things, and I've mentioned it already, and it's sort of already come up, is this sort of just complicated sort of zone of consent, of interactions, right? Like, you know, we learn, without giving too much away, that like Chanshi is a victim of her own, but also to some extent, or does, right, sort of prey on others. I personally really appreciated sort of flipping the line of what a quote unquote good victim is and does. But I was wondering if you just talk about this, both in terms of how it played out on the set, right? You know, some American sets employ what's called an intimacy coordinator, which makes sure that people are comfortable in these sort of scenes, but also in the writing and the reception. Yeah, if we could just talk about that.
We didn't have an intimacy coordinator.
Right.
I wrote the scripts and then I was acting in them. And I guess I just assumed everyone was going along with me.
Right. Actually, this is a really new idea even in American sort of TV making. So this is not, I mean, you told me once you were your own intimacy coordinator.
I am my own intimacy coordinator in terms of like, this is the scene, and like, I was in a very fortunate position that I'm wearing a bunch of hats. So like, I would do rehearsals with the actors, and then if a line didn't work, I could rewrite it. And normally if like an actor is doing something, is basically like, this is the lines, you need to learn them and they need to make sense, because I'm not changing them because you think they don't work for you. So like, I was in a very cool position that I could be like, something doesn't sound right, I could change it. So when it also comes to like an intimate scene, it's like, we're talking about it, we're talking about the characters, like, are you comfortable with this? Are you comfortable with that? At a certain point, it's like you ask people, are they okay? And you hope that they're telling you the truth. And I think that's just in life. It's like you get into sticky situations. And I mean, the series deals with this kind of gray area where it's like, there's no bad person and good person. I mean, that's not how I experience sexuality, especially coming from a religious home where you don't really have anyone to talk to about these things. I mean, my first sexual experience, I didn't want it to happen, and then once it happened, I couldn't really talk about it with anyone. And that's really what I ended up questioning within the series, in terms of like, I didn't want this to happen, but I kind of wanted it to. Let's just talk about it. It's very hard for me to say that, like, the experience that Chanshi ends up understanding that she was raped. It's hard for me to say the word, to call it rape. Other people can call it whatever they want to call it. For me personally, to talk my own experience, I go, well, when someone says the word rape, it has a certain kind of definition to it. It's clear that there was a bad person and the victim, and it was aggressive and it was violent. Like, in my head, that's what, they were held down, they didn't want to be there. And for me, it was like a very different kind of more complex situation. And at the same time, there was something freeing about that situation that once I no longer, like, after it happened, I came out and I was like, who am I? I thought I was gonna be this religious girl who was gonna get married to this guy and have kids and do this and that and the other. And then all of a sudden I came out, I'm like, well, now I'm damaged goods. No one's gonna wanna marry me. I can't do what I thought I was gonna do. Who am I? Where am I gonna go? And like, there was something about it that I go, oh, well, I feel like I'm much happier and much more who I am now. And a lot of it has to do with that moment that I came out and I go, well, who am I? And it kind of freed me in a way. And this is why I can only talk about, like, this is my experience. So it's like hard when other people say, like, oh, you're talking about this, or you're talking about, this is what you're saying. And I go, listen, at the end of the day, you put something out there, anybody can interpret it however they want, and I can't tell somebody not to. But that's why it's hard for me to be like, I am saying this or I'm saying that. I'm not. I'm questioning. I'm trying to figure it out, and I'm kind of just like putting it on the table. Like, this is what happened. It's complex. Yeah.
So I think that's actually a great time for us to go to questions. So if students could raise their hand, and Mushkie, can you run to people and just introduce yourself? And yeah.
Hi, I'm Eitan. I'm a
Your number
senior.
one fan.
Yes, number one fan. I'm currently in the middle of my third rewatch for class for this show. Yeah. So
Yes, number one. Yeah.
yes, there's a lot of what some people would call insider baseball in the show, of like terms and ways of acting that are like, you only get it and you only really find it funny, and you like only, you can watch the whole thing and not catch it, but you only catch it if you like grew up in this like frum world. Was sort of the purpose of that to make it more comfortable to deliver the message about like consent and the cycle of rape to the frum community, or was it like not intentional?
My purpose in doing a TV series and putting myself up in here is like, I want to make money. That was what I wanted to do. I haven't made money from it yet. So I failed in that. But in terms of like the insider thing, I really wasn't thinking about like, I wanted it to feel authentic. It's really hard to kind of find the balance between, this is like something that I know certain people are really gonna find funny and gonna get, and then all these other people on set, like the other Israeli seculars, I'm like, they have no idea what just happened here was funny. And then when you get to the editing room, it's like, you have to pick and choose. What are the things that I'm gonna keep, that I'm gonna say, they're gonna get it, and the people that are gonna get it, it's for them. And like, just not feel like people are completely lost, and like, I feel like there's a lot of private jokes and I don't understand what's happening. And it's just something that like, I'm so happy when people feel like, oh, like this was like for me, like I got this joke, because that was something that I really wanted to do. And it's just something to take with you when you watch any series from anywhere. It's like, there are always gonna be things lost in translation. Anytime something's translated, you're not getting the whole picture. Or anytime there's any kind of story and you don't necessarily know all the background, all the history, it's like, you hopefully get the message of what you get, and you know that there's a lot that's out. Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions? Just raise your hand. And
Hi, I'm Mandy. I got to watch the whole show. I really enjoyed it, and I noticed. I'm so sorry, I forget her name. Is it Eliana, the roommate?
Oh, yeah.
No, the roommate.
Aleeza.
Oh, Aleeza. Okay.
No, well, the
her
roommate
name's
is
Eliana.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
that's what I thought. Okay, she gets like absolutely tortured. So I was wondering, like, how did you come up with these plot lines for her? Why is she like based on anyone you know? Sort of what happened?
Maybe talk a little bit about like these Anglo girls roommate situations for those of us who are less
Well,
familiar.
I don't know what to say. For me, it's just like that's how we lived.
So there's like a whole, I mean, you obviously fill in more, but like there's a whole sort of subculture of course, our class at least, and I think many of you watch Game, right? It's like, there's a swamp of like religious singles who live in Jerusalem, but among that, there's all these little subgroups, and among one of those is English-speaking groups. So
And
we all go from there.
No, we all kind of find each other and we end up living together. And I think there's also when you're religious, female, and you're moving to Israel on your own, a lot of people come and they're like, because I want to meet someone, I want to get married. Like maybe things didn't work out. Eliana at least is based on this idea of like, it didn't work out for me in the Upper West Side. I'm gonna try a new scene and hopefully like things are gonna work out for me. And they don't always, and it's hard. You're also like, you're in a foreign country. And I mean, sadly, the storyline with Eliana that takes like a really devastating twist is based on that, like someone's sister, she was like in her 30s, but I guess she felt so much pressure from her parents about like having to get married, and her roommate found her that she had hung herself. And it was a terrible, I mean, that's not what I did here because you need to change things in order to get a story across. I also didn't think that was fair to the character. It didn't really make sense to me. And you don't necessarily want to say like, this is this person, because I'm not, who am I to do that? But I felt like I could understand this kind of feeling of like all your parents, your parents on the other side, and they're telling you what you shouldn't do, and you're trying to figure out who you are, and there's all this pressure like from there and from here. You also don't want to be a roommate forever. Do you know what I mean? She's the constant roommate. And anyways, Lee Bader came in, the actress, I don't know what you can say in America. She came in and she auditioned for it, and she brought in this like energy, and we just fell in love with her. And it was like clear to me from the beginning. I was like, this is Eliana. She brings so much heart to the character.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions? Karen, there's one on the end.
Hi, I'm Yair. I'm studying film. I love the show.
Thank you.
Similar to Eitan's question, like so much of the show has to, like, in order to really understand the niche and the jokes, you have to kind of grow up in that community. And I'm curious how you pitched the show, especially to people who didn't understand the world you were trying to portray.
How did I pitch it? Well, I pitched it to a bunch of people, and they were like, this is such a great idea, but come to us with your next idea. I really just think it was kind of, it's annoying. It was like kind of like a miracle that it made it through, because it's so different than the other stuff that they are producing or that they have on TV. They really were taking a chance with this. And I think that's also when the show came out in Israel, they weren't really advertising it. They didn't do any signs at all. It was just like word of mouth and like a little bit of Instagram. So I was very, very fortunate to like that people were talking about it and there were good reviews. How do I pitch it? I mean, I think sex sells. And I think at the beginning when you kind of are like, here's this American girl who comes here because she wants to sleep with all the Israeli soldiers. And I mean, it's true. That's really why I made Aliyah. That's what I wanted. It's not, then that's not the reason why I stayed. And so I think if at least in the beginning, the first 2 episodes, I really tried to play on this stigma the Israelis have of Americans and kind of like what they think and like that there's part of it that I go like, yeah, it's true, but there's a lot more that you just like don't understand. Yeah.
So we'll do Aleeza and then in the front. That's also
Hi, I'm actually also Aleeza. I was wondering if was any specific significance to the names of the characters that you chose. I don't speak Hebrew, so I don't know like what the words mean, but like I'm a fan of like reasoning behind names, so I was wondering if there was such, yeah.
Well, at least for Chanshi, people are like, was that because your last name is Chanowitz? No. I went to camp with a girl named Chanshi, and I really like the name, and I also really like that people who can't say will have a hard time with it. I thought that would be fun. That, because I was like, think about America. I'm so Israeli now. It's like, what do the Americans want? So I think in terms of, it was like from Chana, which is like a very typical like Jewish name, and then kind of like have that twist on it, and I just thought it was such a great name, and it's a fun name. Some of them are like kind of in my head based on other people, like certain personality trait of people that I know, and you kind of like twist it along and you hope that they don't notice. I will say though that, have you watched all the episodes?
I watched the first like 4, I think.
Okay, you don't have to, no pressure. I'm just saying that in episode 9 when we meet Chachi's father and stepmother, my stepmother's name is Babshi. That's a great name. I couldn't like use a different name. And I asked her, and I was like, can I use your name? And she was like, yeah. And then she's like, no. And then I'm like, but you said yeah. She's like, yeah. Then that was it, and I never brought it up again. So she said yeah.
But also, like for an Israeli, Chanshi, right? Even if they know that it's a sort of affectionate term for Chana, it marks them as at least not a average Israeli name, right? It's something
It's not
foreign.
an Israeli, yeah, it's
Not
definitely something foreign. Yeah, that's true. That was like something that you take into account. Like also the name Eliana. I mean, my name's Aleeza. People in Israel are like, ha ha ha, are you married to Yossi? Because the name Aleeza is like a name of people's grandmothers and aunts. It's like an old-fashioned name. I'm like, guys, in America, like my neighbor, her name is Aleeza. She's like, but what do they call you? Like Lizzie? And I was like, they call me Aleeza. She's like, I don't let people call me Aleeza. I tell them my name is Lizzie. I'm like, I have no problem with my name. Because it has a different idea. That was a side note.
So I think we have, Jen, did you have a question? All right, let's bring up that. And then Jen, and then Imbar.
Okay, thank you, first of all, for coming. This is really neat. So I want to know what your favorite peripheral story is, or character, in the series. So Chanshi is, of course, front and center, but there's a lot of side stories, you know, going on in the margins. And so what's your favorite, either to write or to have put on camera?
Well, a side note is just that it was clear to me that I was writing from Chanshi's character as the lead, but in terms of like Noki's character, I did have to go back and rewrite each episode as if she was the lead to make sure that I was making her complex enough and not just someone who was there to serve Chanshi's story. So sometimes I'll do that in an episode if I feel like there's a certain character, I'll be like, let's write it as if they're the main character. But I really enjoyed David's line because in episode 6, those haven't watched, a spoiler alert, but she ends up raping him. And I just think that, you know, you can interpret it however you want. You could talk about the scene and what does it mean and how did it happen, things like that. But I just think it's very interesting to think about this and also to talk about it with like Tomer, the actor, the character, of like, how is he supposed to behave in this kind of situation? Because it's very clear what it looks like the other way around. I just thought it was really interesting writing his character and kind of like looking at my own experiences and questioning a lot of things that happened that had lead me up to this. A lot of things, you also need perspective in order to write. Like I moved to Israel when I was 21. I'm 33. And everything looks different to me of like writing about an experience that happened when I was 21. So it's very, like now I'm thinking, yeah, and now I'm going off. There, I answered, right?
But maybe could you talk about Noki a little bit?
So Noki's character is based on one of my very good friends who, it's hard to talk about in the past. Don't shoot me.
Or but maybe why you felt it was important to bring like LGBTQ issues to the show, or sort of how that came about.
Well, for me, it was also very close. It was a very good friend of mine who was going through some kind of transition within the Jewish religious community. And for me, it was also interesting that as people who like can be queer and feel like the community is not necessarily against them all the time, that Judaism, there is a place for them. And for me, I also feel like it's like, well, I don't know where I am on the spectrum, but there is a place for me somewhere. Like, I think that that's also why, like, I'm going back to myself. No, but like why I feel so comfortable in Israel, because I feel like a lot of Israelis are like, this Judaism is choking me, and I'm like, in Israel, I can be whatever Jew I want. Like, everyone knows what the holidays are. I don't have to explain that to anyone. If I want to do a Friday night dinner, everyone's doing that, even if it's like cultural. So you can kind of pick and choose and still feel like, you know, that's my identity, and like no one's gonna question it. And then with Noki's character, it was just like someone who's also like someone who goes through some kind of like conversion therapy that doesn't necessarily look like what I feel like a lot of the stories that I've been told of, like how it's something that's very obviously violent, like, you know, smack the gay out of them. And from my friend who told me about their experience, it was very much like, it felt like therapy, but it was like a bit different. Kind of like, let's explain why you are the way you are and fix it. Which is just interesting to me.
Yeah. Imbar, did you have a?
Hi, thank you for coming. It was really interesting to watch the show. I have so many questions, but I'll just ask one. I recognized a theme of choice and choices that each new character, Chanshi asks, but do you do that on your own will? Are you choosing to be here? This is what you want? And she's asking Noki, she asks Geffen, and she tries to portray in a way that she's acting on her own will. But I think that there's this tension between choosing to do something and being pushed to do something. And I was wondering, even if that was intentional, maybe it's just my interpretation. And is that, is that something that the show tried to figure out? Or is it, maybe is it something that she just tries to solve it with her own, herself and her father, and the way that he's like, again, spoilers, I'm sorry, accepting her like she is, or?
There is no black and white, because anytime you make a choice, it's always based on who you are as a person and how you got there and everything else around you. My only intention with her character is that she comes in and she kind of is this like whirlwind, and she ends up affecting all the people around her, kind of like a vampire. Like they catch on to like whatever she has, and then they go through their own like process. And then in the end, they could say thank you, but they could also say, this is not necessarily what I wanted to do. You didn't have to be the catalyst to get me here. But then again, it's like, it's not necessarily like it's good and bad, it's complex.
Here.
Thank you so much for coming. I really enjoyed the show.
What's your name?
Noah Levy. I'm a sophomore. What was the reaction back home in the Orthodox and Chabad world when you came out with the show? What were people saying? When you go home, what's the vibe?
Well, I gave birth right as the show came out, so it was very much like, keep the baby alive, like who cares about anything else? I always get this question of like, what do the religious people say? And I think that the question, it's the wrong question. Not that there's anything wrong with your question, but it's really not about whether people are religious or not. I think it's more of people have a conservative mindset, and that has nothing to do with religion. I think people that like are just very conservative have a hard time with the show. like this guy, I mean, we saw his picture on WhatsApp. He called my producer. He didn't look religious. He didn't have like a kippah on or anything. He called my producer yelling at her, "How dare you do a show like this?" And then he starts quoting things from like episode 2, episode 5, episode 9. I'm like, you watched the whole thing. And I think also people are very brave online. So they haven't said it to my face. I've gotten a lot of people have recognized me and given me compliments in the street. That's what I've faced. And also when I went to Jerusalem to my dentist, I got stopped by 3 people who asked me for selfies, and they were all religious. Like this girl with a wig, like they were clearly dressed Orthodox, and they were excited about when I was giving. I took my baby for a jaundice appointment at the hospital, and this woman standing there looking like she's from Bnei Brak, she's like very, like ultra Orthodox, and she's like, Chanshi? And I was like, yeah, hi. And she's like, listen, I'm ultra Orthodox, so like I don't watch TV or movies, but I watched your show and I love it. And it's like, I know you're from Bnei Brak and you guys watch all the shows before everybody else, and I was like, thank you. So that's really what it is. It's like people have a very conservative mindset who can't accept that anybody else would do anything other the way that they would do it, have a very hard time with accepting the show and with anything and being like, what is this? I didn't make any of this up. I'm one of many. Like, we are all out there. So, okay, yeah.
And I was just to expand that, like, I forgot to mention that your show premiered at Sundance. Right, earlier in the year, was the first Israeli TV show to do so. So just wondering, like, I also know you had like a 3-week-old, so it might be a bit of a blur, but like, what was Sundance like with this show? This is not, you don't usually think of shows about Orthodox girls at Sundance.
No, it was great. I was mostly in the hotel room because she was 3 weeks old, and I was like, if everyone's going, I have to go, and I got her a passport. I don't recommend that. But we had 5 screenings, and it was just great because like I got feedback from people who are like, nobody there was Jewish, nobody there was like Israeli, and they got it. I felt like at least they came up to me and they really enjoyed the show. I'm like, okay, so like I feel like if you kind of just do what you can do, like hopefully like the essence of the story is something that is just human, that other people can then kind of like get and understand. It doesn't really matter the really pretty dresses that we're wearing, even if you don't wear the same pretty dress. That like the heart of it is something I think that like spoke to people. And that was like so great because then I went back to my producers and I'm like, see, we're gonna sell the show. The Mormons loved it.
Other questions from the audience? Yeah, there's one in the second
row. Hello, my name is Rachel.
Hi.
To kind of follow off of Noah's question, how did your immediate family react to it? Especially like from listening to you, it seems like a lot of the plot and the stories are like based off of your own personal experience. That was my first question. And my second question is, you mentioned that like it hasn't made money yet. So what are the next steps in your mind, like for the show? Like where do you hope to see it going? Where is it going? So those are my 2 questions.
I'll just quickly do the money one first. It's not up to me to sell it. That's like other people. Like I can't call up like Mike at Netflix and be like, hey, I don't know who he is. Like I have no way to get to him. So that's like in other people's hands. And the trend right now of original content that they're buying from Israel is all like Fauda, action, like that kind of Mossad stuff. So they're not interested in character-driven stuff at the moment. That trend could always change. I am very happy that I did this because it will get me to my next project, which hopefully will be lucrative. So, I mean, for someone who like hasn't done anything, it's just great to even just like have something on your resume, and then you can show people like, yeah, I can do something, I did something. So in terms of that, you gotta think, where's my next step? And in my family, the bottom line is that my mom, she's just like, yeah, woo. My father, he came to the premiere he came in for 3 days from New York. He came to Tel Aviv for the premiere. And I was 9 months pregnant, so I guess that kind of helps me with my pity. But he was like, I was like, you know what you're getting into. Like, this is nothing new. Like, we've been speaking about this for years. You know I'm in film. Like, I can't warn you anymore. Like, there are sex scenes. There are things I don't want you to see, not only because, like, you're religious, because you're my father. Like, if you're coming, like, that's on you. Like, I can't really control it. And then I kept having a plan of, like, he'll sit next to this person. I'll tell him when to leave and then when to come back and, like, all this. But, like, then my husband was like, he's a big boy. He like knows what he's doing. So he came and he watched it. I'm sorry, I just have to say one thing.
No, go for
there's
it.
there's like a famous TV like entertainment host called Guy Penis, and he does a show and he does like entertainment interviews, and they came to the premiere. But before they showed up, my father goes like, I don't want people to like film me or to see that I'm here, because like I spoke to my rabbi and like it's good that I'm here to support you, but I don't want to like say something up like to the community. I don't want them to say anything to me. And I was like, Todd, like they're not gonna film you. Like they don't care. They don't know who you are. And he's like, okay, good. Anyways, and I'm at the premiere and I'm like answering somebody's questions, and then my husband's like, Aleeza, look. I look over. It's Guy Penis, like the big camera with the big light. My father's there like, I came to support my daughter. And I love her very much. So there is like the community, and there's the face that you put out there and to show people who you are, and then there's people. And that's like, I think my father, he's just very proud. And I think it's also easy to be proud when like other people are like, wow, your daughter's the... Like that definitely helps.
Other questions? Well, I'll ask another one. We'll see if people come up. But so I wanted to ask. Oh, I got my notes. We talked a lot about like we've sort of gone around it a bit, but I think one of the tensions of the show is like marriage versus friendship, and especially female friendship. Right, that like I was just thinking of when I was rewatching the episodes when Noki goes to get a vacuum cleaner and she's sort of suckered into getting a very expensive vacuum cleaner. And of course the feelings I had when I bought myself a very similar expensive vacuum cleaner as a not married person. So I was wondering if you could just talk about like these expectations of marriage, especially for religious women, and then sort of how that clashes or doesn't with female friendship as you see it on the show.
Well, when I moved to Israel, I was on my own. Like I knew, like I had like distant cousins, like I have family there, and I had a bunch of friends there. But really, like your friends become your family. Like they become your immediate family. They're the person that you spend all the holidays with and stuff, and Shabbat. And so when someone gets married from the group breaks up, and it's like feels like a betrayal. And I think that's where this kind of tension comes between like, yeah, you're my best friend. Like, why didn't you ask me about how I'm gonna feel that you're getting married? I mean, that's how I experience a lot of things because also there's this like, I mean, I don't know how it is in the secular world, but when you get married, you kind of just disappear in a way for a bit, no? Like this person, like this unit that we had, like we're no longer priority, even though we were for so long. Am I answering your question? I'm like thinking about.
I think so.
So I think like when she comes in and she's here with Noki, and Noki has her friends like that, like it was like kind of like you come into this very close unit, and Chanshi in a way kind of like breaks it up. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you in my class, right, we talked about surgim and the term, right, elective socialities, right, which is a fancy way of saying that your friends become your family, and that's like one of the big aspects of modern life. So then when there's a shift in that, right, it's not just like, oh, my friend is getting married, it shakes your whole world.
Yeah, especially when you don't have any other family here, you have no one to like Thanksgiving, I never cared about, and then as an American living in Israel, I'm like, only my American friends can celebrate this with me, and all of a sudden I'm like patriotic, I guess. I mean, can you call Thanksgiving patriotic? I don't know. I'm just saying this, like everyone getting together and being festive. Like there is no fall leaves in Israel. We don't have that. It's like cactus. So So it's hard when like, I don't know, I'm agreeing with you.
Okay. Eitan, you have another question.
Is there going to be a season 2?
Probably not. I'll tell you what. When I wrote it, I was like, I feel like a lot of the shows these days, they kind of leave you hanging always, and I get really upset when I watch it because I don't know if there's going to be season 2. So for me, and a lot of people were upset at me with the ending, but for me, I wanted to do an ending that was kind of satisfying and doesn't necessarily, like, can lead to a second season, but doesn't necessarily have to. Like, it is like a full thing in itself. You can't leave it completely closed because, like, that's not how things work these days in the industry. But the network just don't believe in the show. So they were like, one of the women, she was like, the woman who's in charge of content, she was like, so like start working on season 2. And I was like, I will, but like you need to pay me now. She's like, yeah. And they don't have any money. So I'm not gonna do it. It's, right? But hopefully I'll have other projects that I'm trying to work on, and hopefully you'll watch those.
I want to, before you tell me about other projects or what you can tell me, I want to just see if there's a sort of last call for questions. Yeah.
Actually, this segues directly into that. First of all, thank you so much, especially.
Hi, Rabbi Weiss.
I was going to be a rando here. Okay. Thank you so much to Dr. Weiss and Aleeza. This is really amazing for you to be here, and amazing work. I'm curious, what's your dream project? If all things were available, what would you do next?
I don't know how much I should say.
Okay.
I will say that I'm trying to develop a project that is Jewish theme, has nothing to do with Israel, that takes place in the United States, has to do with also like my past experiences at camp. That's something that I'm working on here. I also am working on developing another idea for a show in Israel, which is just, I don't know what's going on with that, so I can't really, like, I don't know where the world is right now. So I can't really, I'm hopeful things will, I'm sorry, now I'm gonna get emotional.
Is there anything you can share about things you're working on? It's okay.
It's a shit show, huh?
What camp?
Oh, what camp? Sternberg?
An all-girls Orthodox Jewish camp, for those of us who don't know.
Yeah, I'm working on a feature. I don't know, the world, it seems grim. Well, I'm just gonna look at America and be like, yeah, let's do things here for now. And hope things will kind of figure themselves out.
But yeah, and one of the things we wanted to bring is that like well, of course, in addition to having you here, is that it's hard to be a creator and like a creative person no matter what, but it's not necessarily a place, especially in Israel, where like people are making tons of money, and you can have a show that's like hugely critically acclaimed and still deal with all sorts of bullshit, you know, for lack of better term, as you're dealing with. But in some ways, also, if we've talked about, get opportunities that are also really exciting. Although you may feel differently about that balance now than the last time we spoke. I just want to thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Aleeza will be back actually in the same room at 6:30 for a Hillel event that will be a sort of a more informal conversation. Again, I want to thank you all so much for coming. Thank you to Mushkie and the staff for putting this all together. And yeah, thank you.